Have you ever questioned why you were born into the family you are in? Have you ever experienced the most unfavorable circumstances? It may appear unjust or mistaken, but what if I told you there was a plan? Not an accident, not a punishment, but a course selected by your soul before you arrived. Does it seem absurd? I know. But remain with me. Let's investigate this secret reality together. You know, the chosen are not born in easy circumstances. They don't come to live an everyday life. They emerge from the crucible of creation. And his family, as difficult as it was, taught him the first important lesson in life. You might think that your upbringing was a struggle, and your home served as a battlefield where your spirit sustained constant damage. Look again. See past the suffering. What do you see? Do you notice any patterns that repeat themselves from generation to generation? We are passing on toxic practices as an unseen inheritance. That is it. You were born there because you were the only one capable of ending the cycle. You did not come to be lost in the darkness, you came to illuminate the road. Perhaps all of the content seems too strong, but if you believe this message has already begun to awaken something within you, take advantage and subscribe here to the channel. There is much more information like this waiting for you. However, before you can modify anything, you must first comprehend it. You must experience it first before it can heal. As a result, you've been placed in the midst of chaos, not to be crushed by it, but to learn to conquer it. You have the ability to observe what others overlook. It's crucial to subtly question the acceptance of others. The goal is to become so strong that only you can determine who you are. What lessons have you learned from your family? Not just them, but also you. How does this toxin affect you internally? In reality, our families not only inflict damage on us, but they also act as a reflection of who we are. They show the aspects of ourselves that still require mending. And that, my friend, is the most wonderful present you could ever get. Toxic families follow a predetermined script. The father who never showed affection may have learned such behavior from his father. The mother, who was always critical of everything you did, may have developed from a background where she never felt sufficient. The brothers, who have perpetually fought for their own space, might have come to understand that love only manifests when it is triumphant. Everything that was projected upon you sprang from a time before you existed. But you have a strong desire to be unique. And this emotion is not in vain. Perhaps you grew up hearing that you were overly sensitive, dreamy, or emotional. Perhaps you were labeled a rebel for refusing to obey the restrictions that restricted you. But consider this, was the fault with you or with the surroundings, which were unable to deal with your truth? Toxic families teach that being honest is risky and that being free is harmful. But now you're starting to realize that your independence is the best gift you can offer yourself. But I understand that the task is not simple. I understand how difficult it is to perceive the person who has injured you as a master in disguise. I understand that sometimes you just want to go away. But listen, it's not about blind forgiveness. It's not a case of tolerating abuse. It's about awakening. Experiencing the pain and realizing that it holds a key is essential. This key has the potential to liberate not only you, but also all those who have come before you and those who will come after. Because the minute you stop asking yourself, why did this happen to me, and instead ask, what is this teaching me? You begin to realize your potential. And this marks the first step toward its transition. The pains inflicted by his family are real. They're real. They shaped you, left a mark on your heart, and you may have thought you would have to carry that weight forever. But this is the truth, these scars are more than simply recollections of anguish, they also represent endurance. They hurt and teach. Each of them conveys a message, a lesson, or an encouragement to go deeper inside oneself. Now, I'd want you to reflect. What feelings arise when you reflect on the sorrow your family has caused? Anger? Resentment? Sadness? What if I told you that these challenging feelings are not enemies? What if, rather than repressing them, you began to view them as masters? You see, the chosen aren't just here to ease the grief of their families. They're here to cure themselves. True healing begins when you realize that what happened to you was not about you. Your inability to accept love did not cause the suffering you experienced. It happened because people who were meant to love him failed to love themselves. Their actions reflected their scars, traumas, and limitations. But at some time, you accepted that grief as your own. You've assimilated the words, expressions, and silences. You came to believe that everything had to do with you. But there isn't. It never did. And that is the first step toward liberation, freeing yourself from the narrative your family has crafted for you. Reclaim your identity. Rediscover your genuine worth. But how can they accomplish this when the wounds of childhood seem etched in their own DNA? How can we get rid of deeply established tendencies that have been passed down from generation to generation? It all begins with consciousness. Understand that the way your family has treated you does not determine who you are. It's important to understand that their toxic behavior doesn't define who they are. That you were created not to perpetuate the pattern, but to break it. However, conscience alone is not enough. Real transformation occurs when you accept responsibility for your own recovery. The hardest thing to accept is that you can only break free when you stop expecting your family to change, own your faults, apologize, or validate your grief. Because certain individuals will never change. Some wounds will not be identified. Some apologies will never arrive. And that's okay. Something outside your control cannot be the source of your peace of mind. Now, let me ask you a question. How would it feel to forgive your family, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace? What would it be like to let go of anger and resentment, not to excuse them, but to finally stop bearing a burden that is not your own? Forgiveness does not equal forgetting. It does not imply approval for what occurred. It simply implies, I refuse to let this experience define me. I won't bear this misery any longer. I choose my freedom. And at this point, the present is disclosed. You awaken when you release the burden. As you let go of the anguish, you recall its strength. As you break out from your family's habits, you realize your true identity. But, let's be honest, this process isn't linear. Healing does not occur overnight. Awakening isn't simple. There will be days when the weight of your tale feels intolerable. There will be times when you doubt your strength, when you wonder if you truly have what it takes to break the pattern. And it is precisely in these moments that I want you to remember something crucial. You were picked for this. This is not because the task is easy, but because you possess the necessary skills and abilities. Not because it deserves to suffer, but because it exists to turn suffering into strength, darkness into light, and wounds into insight. What if everything you consider a weakness, the scars, rejection, and sorrow, is also your greatest strength? What if a lack of love taught you how to love yourself? What if neglect paved the path to your independence? What if suffering taught you to be more compassionate? That is what the chosen ones do. They alter the suffering they've endured. They take hereditary patterns and disrupt them. They do not simply cure themselves, they heal their whole lineage. In reality, healing encompasses more than just yourself. When you choose to break the pattern, you are giving others permission to do the same. When you break loose, you demonstrate that freedom is attainable. When you embrace your power, you become a beacon for those who remain lost in the darkness. If this shift in perspective moved you, add a line in the comments declaring its strength. My pain has become power. Writing this is more than just a comment, it represents a commitment to your own recovery. That's why being born into a poisonous family, as painful as it was a blessing. Pain exists not to justify itself, but to serve a reason. And that mission is your awakening. Could you consider viewing your narrative from a different perspective? What if each wound was an encouragement to grow? What if each obstacle offered a chance for personal growth and transcendence? Because you are not a victim of your family, you are the trigger for their development. You aren't here to repeat patterns. You are here to break them. You are not here to be defined by other people's sorrow. You came here to transcend it. And that, my friend, is the real gift. The first key to your liberty is awareness. Without it, you may go your entire life repeating patterns without recognizing it, holding beliefs that aren't even yours, and reciting tales about yourself that you were told as a youngster. So, pause and consider, what within you still mirrors your family's behaviors? Perhaps it is his persistent desire for affirmation, having been taught that he could only be worthy of love if he met the expectations of others. Perhaps it is a fear of expressing yourself since you have always been hushed. Alternatively, it could be a sense of inadequacy stemming from a lifetime of striving to demonstrate your worth. These habits invade your decisions, relationships, and self-perception. But now that you've seen them, you may ask them questions. When you question something, you've already made the first step toward overcoming it. But seeing isn't enough. The next stage is to heal. Healing yourself does not imply reconstructing yourself because you are broken. You have never been broken. Healing yourself is recalling who you were before your prior experiences shaped you into anything other than your actual identity. This road requires three forces: self-love, self-compassion, and self-discipline. Self-love is the foundation of everything. He is not dependent on how his family treats him or on anyone's approval. It is your everyday decision to pick yourself, respect yourself, and set your boundaries. It takes bravery to acknowledge oneself as worthy just as he is. Self-love is neither selfishness nor arrogance. It is an act of recognition of your existence, a commitment to your well-being, and a deterrent to others who seek to reduce your worth. It entails learning to say no without shame and yes without anxiety. It entails not asking for emotional crumbs, but rather feeding yourself with your light. However, we recognize that self-love is not always easy, particularly if our upbringing has taught us otherwise. This is why self-compassion is vital. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. There will be moments when the voices of the past tell you that you are insufficient. Be kind to yourself, know that recovery doesn't have to be perfect, and that every step is a win. Self-compassion is being patient with yourself, accepting that mistakes are part of learning, and knowing your worth doesn't change. Finally, practice self-discipline. Healing requires dedication. It needs you to choose to break free from old habits, even when it is difficult. It needs you to keep going, even when it appears that nothing has changed. Every day, you need to recognize and act on your right to a different life. Discipline is not rigidity, but rather the constancy with which you choose to evolve. It is the act of rising from a fall and continuing forward while pain attempts to drag you back. Consider this: if you truly felt that you were deserving of love and pleasure, how would your life be? How would you treat yourself? Which partnerships would you maintain? Which ones would you leave behind? Which decisions would you make? How many times have you accepted your family's opinions to shape your future? How many times have you hushed your voice to avoid disturbing yourself? What if, for the first time, you chose yourself above the expectations placed on you? Independence does not mean running away from your family. It means creating your own space and identity. It is to let go of expectations that you never had. To truly be authentic, you must let go of the need for acceptance. To be free is acknowledging that you do not have to bear their tragedies. It involves deciding that your life will not prolong their suffering. To be free means looking at your family and seeing them for who they are, wounded individuals bound by their agony. Such an attitude does not imply tolerating abuse. This does not mean keeping unhealthy links. This includes realizing that their grief does not have to be yours. It is possible to observe them with compassion, without allowing their wounds to influence your own life. You may love them without sharing their burden. You can forgive them without letting them harm you again. The most powerful component is that when you heal, you become a living example of how change is possible. Even if they don't realize it, their change creates seeds. Its light reveals new pathways. Your decision to break free can encourage, even if silently, others who remain confined. Your presence may make a difference without you saying anything. Sometimes simply existing truthfully is enough to let people understand there is another way to live. What if the best gift you could give your family was to be your true self instead of trying to save them? What if, rather than convincing people to change, you simply altered your reality? What if his deliverance was the most powerful evidence that there is life beyond the anguish we have inherited? This journey is the path of the chosen. It is not an effortless route, but it is a path to power. Really. Of transformation. Ultimately, his toxic family did not destroy him. She taught him. It was the environment in which his spirit learned to become stronger. It was the soil in which you grew up. Every pain you overcome shaped who you are today. Each challenge he experienced prepared him for something bigger. You did not come into this world to repeat your family's painful history but to write a fresh chapter. And when you choose to heal yourself, find your serenity, or assert your value, you are not just altering your life. You're shifting generations. You are making way for those who follow you to choose a lighter route. It demonstrates that it is possible to break cycles, to convert grief into wisdom, and to achieve freedom. So I ask you, if you completely accepted your role as the chosen one and embraced all of your power, what kind of life would you build for yourself? The route to healing is not a straight one. It does not happen overnight, nor does it proceed in a predictable manner. Some days you'll feel strong and ready for anything, while others will bring the past back to haunt you. But you must remember that growth is defined by your ability to go forward in the face of adversity. You don't need to know all the answers at this moment. You do not need to comprehend all of your sentiments right now. What matters is that you're awake, questioning, and looking for something better than the reality imposed on you. This is the best indication that you're on the correct route. Above all, realize that you do not need your family's approval to recover. Many individuals spend their lives waiting for their parents or relatives to acknowledge their faults, waiting for an apology that never arrives, expecting that all will be resolved as if by magic one day. However, the delay further exacerbates their suffering. Do you believe these words accurately describe your experiences and current circumstances? If this video has brought you clarity and power, please click the like button below the video. This case demonstrates that this sort of information should continue to exist. In actuality, their treatment never hinged on their actions. It's always been yours. After all, the greatest act of emancipation you can undertake is to stop waiting for others to change and instead begin transforming yourself. Your family may never realize how badly you have harmed yourself. They may continue to live by the same norms, refusing to acknowledge the truth. However, this doesn't mean you have to remain in that dynamic. You are entitled to take a different route. You are entitled to live a life centered on love, peace, and sincerity. And here's the fundamental truth: you weren't born to bear the burdens of the past. You were born to go above them. If you believe you have always been unique, that you see things more thoroughly than others, and that you have questioned laws and standards that no one has dared to dispute, the situation may not be a coincidence. Perhaps your behavior is a hint that you are the chosen one. You are an individual who chose to follow their own path instead of conforming to the norm. The chosen were not born to lead regular lives. They are the ones that carry light in the middle of darkness, and they feel compelled to turn their anguish into something larger. Her past may have been filled with misery, but she does not have to let it define her future. You may begin a new chapter. It has the potential to leave a unique legacy. It has the potential to disrupt the cycle and demonstrate that there is an alternative to pain. Breaking out from your family's poison does not imply rejecting them, but rather reconnecting with who you truly are, beyond expectations, scars, and the stories they've heard about you. Healing is a journey rather than a destination. It is not a matter of eliminating the past but of learning to perceive it in a different light. Every hardship you endured honed your strength, and each scar tells a narrative of perseverance. His pain wasn't in vain. He prepared him for a greater purpose. Now it is up to you to determine what you will do with the strength you have gained. Perhaps the route to your healing is setting clear boundaries and learning to say no without shame. Perhaps it means developing healthy connections that reflect the person you want to be. Or perhaps your healing consists in accepting that you cannot change others but can alter yourself. That is powerful enough. If you choose to heal yourself, you are breaking bonds that many others have been unable to break. He decides to mark a watershed moment in his family history. That, in itself, is a courageous act. You're not just changing your personal life, you're altering the course of your whole family history. You're making way for others who come after you to choose a lighter route. It demonstrates that it is possible to break cycles, to convert grief into wisdom, and to achieve freedom. The chosen have a bigger goal than simply surviving life's challenges. They have a mission to awaken, grow, and inspire others to follow in their footsteps. If you have a restlessness within you, a sense that your existence has a deeper significance, then stop doubting. You have been called to something far greater than you realize. Please subscribe to the channel now if this message speaks to you. After you sign up, leave a single word in the comments to express your decision: freedom. Freedom is a simple word, yet it holds immense meaning. And consider for a moment what your life might be like if you truly embraced the power that has always resided inside you. The answer is inside you. It has always been. Now is the moment to finally listen to her. Until the next video, Chosen One.